The wedding planner whispered, like someone had died. I don't think you were supposed to find out this way. I stepped away from the ballroom window, overlooking the ocean reception setup I personally approved 2 weeks earlier. White orchids, crystal lighting, imported Italian linens. My brother wanted royal wedding energy. I made sure he got it. What way? I asked. She hesitated. Papers shuffled nervously over the phone. Your family canceled your invitation this morning, she said carefully. But they asked us not to refund the $50,000 deposit you paid. For a second, I honestly thought she had the wrong file. My name is Savannah Pierce. I built half the luxury hospitality businesses along the California coast, but my parents still introduced my younger brother Nolan as the family success story because he smiled better in photographs. I stared through the glass at workers hanging gold fabric across the terrace. They removed me? I asked quietly. The planner lowered her voice further. They said your attendance would make the bride uncomfortable. That landed harder than the cancellation. I paid for the venue after Nolan cried in my office claiming he couldn't afford his dream wedding without help. I opened the booking contracts on my tablet. Then I calmly said, cancel the entire wedding. The silence on the phone stretched so long I heard silverware clinking behind the planner's desk. Ma'am, she finally whispered, the wedding starts tomorrow. I know. Her breathing turned uneven. But you're not listed as the groom or primary client. No, I said, scrolling through the ownership agreements attached beneath the venue contract. I'm listed as the owner. I heard her sit down hard. 3 years earlier, I bought the Belmont Cove Resort quietly through a holding company after my divorce. Nolan never cared about business details. My parents cared even less. To them, I was just Savannah, the older sister who worked too much and missed holidays because she was married to money. Meanwhile, Nolan failed upward through life with perfect hair and carefully timed tears. The planner cleared her throat carefully. Your mother specifically instructed us not to mention your financial involvement to guests. Of course she did. I opened another tab. Catering. Floral partnership. Guest transportation. Every contract led back to me. My chest hurt less than it should have. That scared me most. Did Nolan know? I asked. The planner went quiet again. Then softly. He told us removing you was the only way his fiancé's family would finally respect him. I leaned back slowly. For the first time, anger disappeared. Something colder replaced it. I drove to my parents' house before sunset. The cars already lined the street. Relatives carried garment bags through the front door, while rented white roses covered the porch railings. Everything looked warm, expensive, celebratory. Fake enough to make my teeth ache. The moment I walked inside, conversations dipped awkwardly. My mother spotted me near the staircase and nearly dropped her wine glass. Savannah, she said carefully, we thought you were traveling. I canceled my trip. That wasn't true. I canceled nothing. I just wanted to watch her lie in person. My father appeared beside her, stiffening immediately. Tomorrow is important, he warned quietly. Don't create tension. The audacity almost impressed me. Nolan entered from the dining room wearing his tuxedo pants and an untucked dress shirt. He froze when he saw me. For 1 second, guilt crossed his face. Then it vanished. You weren't supposed to hear about it yet, he muttered. Yet, I repeated. He rubbed the back of his neck like I was being difficult. Aubrey's parents think our wedding should feel intimate. I laughed once. Intimate? I asked. I paid for half of it. That's exactly the problem, Nolan snapped suddenly. Everyone thinks I'm successful because of you. The room went completely still. Then my mother quietly added, maybe stepping back gracefully would have been the loving thing. I looked at my mother for a long moment, honestly wondering when she stopped seeing me as her daughter and started seeing me as a resource. Gracefully, I repeated softly. My father exhaled impatiently. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. Uglier. Not cruel. Not humiliating. Ugly. Nolan stepped closer, lowering his voice like we were negotiating a business inconvenience instead of my public erasure. You know how people talk, he said. Aubrey's family already thinks I depend on you financially. You do. His jaw tightened instantly. I was going to pay you back. With what money? That hit harder than I expected. Nolan's face darkened while relatives pretended not to listen from the hallway. Then my mother delivered the sentence that finally changed something inside me forever. We sacrificed celebrating your milestones because you were always strong enough to survive disappointment, she said quietly. Nolan isn't. I actually felt my heartbeat slow down. Every birthday skipped. Every achievement minimized. Every holiday where Nolan's failures became emergencies while my successes became expectations. All of it suddenly made perfect sense. Not because they loved him more, because they believed I would tolerate less love indefinitely. I smiled carefully and nodded once. Then I pulled out my phone and called my executive assistant. Eva, I said calmly, activate the cancellation clauses immediately. My mother's face drained of color first. Nolan laughed nervously. Savannah, stop. I ignored him. Eva answered immediately. All contracts or selected accounts? Every wedding-related account under Belmont Hospitality. The hallway erupted behind me. Wait, my father snapped, stepping forward. Eva paused. That includes the venue, guest accommodations, transportation fleet, catering services, floral refrigeration, and private security contracts. Confirm? Confirmed. Nolan grabbed my wrist before I could lower the phone. You're insane, he hissed. People are flying in tonight. I slowly removed his hand from my arm. You should have considered that before disinviting the woman financing your fantasy. My mother's voice cracked sharply. You would destroy your own brother's wedding over hurt feelings? That sentence nearly made me laugh. Hurt feelings. Not betrayal. Not humiliation. Not using me like an ATM while hiding me from wedding photographs. Just feelings. Eva spoke again carefully. Legal will require written authorization for full execution. You'll have it in 5 minutes. Nolan's fiancée Aubrey suddenly appeared near the staircase, pale and visibly confused. What's happening? Nobody answered immediately, because nobody wanted to explain that the wedding she spent months bragging about online technically belonged to me. Then my father said the one thing he should never have said. You're acting exactly why nobody wants you there. The room went silent. I nodded slowly. Then I canceled everything. Phones started ringing before I even reached my car. The florist lost refrigeration access first. Then the transportation company withdrew 12 luxury vehicles scheduled for airport pickups. 27 hotel reservations disappeared from the guest portal almost immediately afterward. By the time I pulled onto the highway, Belmont Cove's event director called me personally. Savannah, he said carefully, your father is threatening legal action in the lobby. Tell security to escort him outside if he raises his voice again. A long silence followed. Then quietly, understood. I drove home through heavy coastal fog with one hand steady on the wheel and the other ignoring 17 incoming calls from family members who suddenly remembered I existed. Only one voicemail mattered. Nolan. At least yell at me like a normal person, he shouted through tears. You don't destroy someone's wedding because they made one mistake. One mistake. I sat in my dark kitchen replaying that sentence while the city lights flickered beyond the windows. Then another message arrived unexpectedly.
Aubrey.
Not angry. Not screaming.
Crying.
I didn't know they removed you, she whispered shakily. Your mother told me you declined because business mattered more than family. I closed my eyes hard. For the first time that night, the anger shifted direction. Not toward Nolan. Toward the people who taught him this behavior would always survive consequences. Aubrey arrived at my penthouse just after midnight wearing jeans, smeared makeup, and Nolan's engagement jacket hanging off her shoulders. She looked exhausted. Not dramatic. Not manipulative. Just embarrassed. I almost married into this, she said quietly after stepping inside. I handed her water and waited. That was the difference between Nolan and me. I learned years ago silence makes people reveal the truth faster than pressure ever will. Aubrey sat at my kitchen island staring at the marble counter. Your mother told my parents you were unstable, she admitted softly. She said you disappear for months, control people with money, and ruin events when attention isn't on you. I actually smiled at that. Not because it was funny, because it sounded rehearsed. How long? I asked. Her eyes filled immediately. Since the engagement party. Everything inside me went still again. Nolan didn't just allow the lie. He built his future on top of it. Aubrey finally looked up. When the cancellation started, his first reaction wasn't panic. Her voice cracked. He said, "She'll calm down eventually. She always does." That hurt worse than the invitation. Because he was right. I always forgave them. Every insult. Every dismissal. Every betrayal disguised as family obligation. Until tonight. Aubrey slid her engagement ring across my counter. "I left him," she whispered. The wedding guests still arrived the next morning. Not because there was a ceremony waiting. Because nobody had told them the truth yet. I watched from Belmont Cove's private rooftop lounge while confused families dragged luggage through the lobby searching for reservations that no longer existed. Nolan stood near the entrance in yesterday's wrinkled tuxedo explaining cancellations to furious relatives while my father argued with hotel management he once bragged he basically owned. For the first time in my life, nobody was rescuing them. My mother finally spotted me above the courtyard balcony. Even from that distance, I saw the panic in her face. Not heartbreak. Not regret.
Fear.
Because the daughter they spent years minimizing had stopped protecting them from consequences. An hour later, Nolan came upstairs alone. His eyes were swollen. His tie hung loose around his neck. "I loved you," he said quietly. "You didn't have to destroy everything." I stared at him for a long moment. Then I answered honestly.
"No, Nolan.
I loved you." I stepped aside, letting him see the empty ballroom below us. "That's why you believed I'd survive anything you did to me." He started crying before I walked away. This time, I didn't turn back.